Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg all resolved brain fog in order to operate at prime performance, increase their output, and grow their businesses. But what is brain fog? Why is it bad for us? And how can we resolve it? My name is Jonas, and I help entrepreneurs achieve prime performance and health with my scientific-based health system. And in today's video, I'm going to explain to you all those points. Let's start. What is brain fog even? Brain fog, the clinical definition, is a reduced mental clarity. And this reduction in mental clarity can have multiple reasons. Why is this topic relevant for us as entrepreneurs? If you're an entrepreneur, you need to operate in high-stress situations, solve complex problems, generate new ideas, and make critical decisions. And in all of those situations, having a clear mind helps. So what does brain fog even mean? Well, the clinical definition is a reduction in mental clarity. So what are symptoms of brain fog? Well, we have three different categories. The first one is cognitive symptoms. This should be a brain. The second one is that we have emotional and behavioral symptoms. And the third one is just overall physical symptoms. Now, if we dive into the first part, there we have poor concentration, that we can't focus, we have memory issues, slow thinking, confusion, and just difficulty with problem solving. The emotional and behavioral symptoms include irritability, just mood swings, lack of motivation, so your drive isn't as high, or you have low energy or fatigue. And the physical symptoms include headache, we can't sleep as well, we have sleep disturbances, we have sensory sensitivity, or just feeling overall dizzy in our brain. Now, the question arises, how do we resolve brain fog so that we can reduce the unclearness in our head and just focus more and have a sharp mind? So the root cause of brain fog or reduced mental clarity is always inflammation. And here a beautiful metaphor comes into play, which is a tree. And the trunk of that tree, where it all comes down to, is inflammation. Now, that inflammation can have multiple reasons, which we are going to talk about later in this video. And those reasons are like the roots of the tree, leading to an inflammation. And that inflammation can manifest itself in different symptoms, as we have just discussed. They can branch out to different symptoms. So as you see in this metaphor, it always comes down to inflammation. To further understand the inflammation in our brain, I want to explain to you how our brain works, also with a metaphor. So in our brain, when we work, when we live, when we do our daily activities, we produce metabolites. Metabolites are products of our metabolism, which get produced when we think, when we talk, when we act, just by living, just by existing. And those metabolites are, you can imagine yourself when you as a person do daily activities. For example, you cook, then you produce rubbish, you put that into the garbage, and once the garbage is full, you need to take the garbage out so that it can get, or that it can be delivered to a garbage deposition. So this garbage which we have in our house also sort of gets produced in our brain, because our cells also produce garbage which needs to be eliminated. Now imagine if you don't put out your garbage and if you just let it be in your house or your flat. At some point you can't function properly because there's too much garbage in your flat. And the same goes with your brain. If your brain isn't able to eliminate metabolites properly, you won't be able to think clearly, or your brain won't be able to function properly. It's the same or a really similar mechanism. Now, with that understanding of that mechanism, I want to dive deeper into the reasons why we have brain fog and what causes inflammation specifically in our brain. So we have a multitude of reasons. One being that we get too little sleep. Talking about sleep, there is also irritated sleep. We have maybe jet lag from traveling too much. If we eat the wrong nutrition, or too much or too little. We have anemia, which stands for having too little blood or too little blood particles. Then too little movement. Then also our environment can cause brain fog. Then if we have chronic stress and also heavy metal exposure. Now I want to dive into how we can resolve those problems and why those problems cause inflammation. Talking about too little sleep. Why does too little sleep cause inflammation and brain fog? Well, if we sleep too little, our body doesn't have enough time to eliminate the metabolites in our brain. Also, for example, the communication between your nerve cells gets slowed down, which is, by the way, the same effect we have when you drink alcohol, which also is the reason why having too little sleep has the same effects as drinking alcohol. Also, if we have too little sleep, parts of our brain take naps during the day in order to be able to recover at least a little bit more. So we want to make sure that we sleep enough, and also by knowing this, working longer in the evening to get work done actually decreases your productivity directly the next day. So what's the solution? Of course, we want to optimize our sleep environment. Also, what helps is knowing your chronotype. What is a chronotype? A chronotype describes your inner body clock, which is individual to every person. And if you know your chronotype, you know when you want to go to bed to sleep perfectly tailored to your DNA and when you want to wake up. This also gives you information about when you perform at your best level. And there are 5 chronotypes. There are the extreme morning types, the morning types, the neutral types, the evening types, and the extreme evening types. And with a DNA test, you can determine which type you are. And by knowing so, you also know when you want to go to bed and when you want to wake up to optimally optimize your sleep and perfect your daily performance. Also, to further optimize your sleep, you can track your sleep with a device such as an Oura Ring to see exactly which parameter is good and which parameter can be increased or optimized, such as REM sleep, deep sleep, sleep onset latency, and so forth and so on. But just as a general guideline, Make sure that you go to bed on time, at the same time every single night. Wake up at the same time every single day. And also make sure that you get sunlight in the morning to optimize your inner biological circadian rhythm and function properly. Next point, irritated sleep. Well, the reasons why irritated sleep causes more brain fog is the same as having too little sleep. If your sleep is irritated, let's say you go to bed at irregular times or you wake up at irregular times, maybe you even wake up during the night, your brain doesn't have the time to restore itself properly, thus isn't able to function at its best levels the next day. So there the measure is simple. Just make sure that you have a fixed bedtime and a fixed wake-up time to give your body a certain rhythm so that it knows when it goes to bed, when it wants to wake up, and is therefore able to really restore itself during the sleep. I also talked to a Harvard professor who researches sleep, and I asked him, what is the most underrated parameter or factor people neglect concerning sleep? And he answered me with one thing, and he said regularity. He said regularity is the most underappreciated factor when it comes to sleep in our society. So this is just one simple hack, one can say, you can implement in your day because it doesn't cost you something, you don't need a device to track it, and you can do it just now starting from today. And it's just one factor which really improves your sleep and thus helps you regain mental clarity. Third point, jet lag. Jet lag goes hand in hand with irritated sleep because it causes us or it forces us to go to bed at different times and wake up at different times. But there are some things we can do to combat jet lag. First of all, we can use light to regulate our sleep. Light regulation is the most important factor when it comes to regulating our sleep. So what we want to make sure is, if we know that we are going to travel to a destination where we need to wake up early or where it would be 4 a.m. or 3 a.m. local time, what we can do is just as of now or at the destination where we are at right now, we can start to exercise early in the morning, use sunlight early in the morning, and go to bed earlier. And in the evening especially, we want to make sure that 2 hours before we go to bed, we dim our lights, we don't look at blue light, and maybe play some calm music just to give our body space and time to increase its melatonin production so that we can fall asleep faster in the evening and train our body to wake up earlier so that when we arrive at the new destination, we are already primed or prone to wake up earlier, which helps our body to adapt to the new time zone faster and quicker. Also, if you have problems falling asleep, what you can do is take a hot bath or go to the sauna. Why? By doing so, we increase our body temperature, especially at the surface, and our body wants to then cool the surface down and thereby drops its core temperature, and that drop in body core temperature leads to us feeling more tired, more sleepy, and helps us get to bed earlier. So those are just some tips on how you can regulate jet lag and combat that factor and adapt more quickly to a new time zone. Now, moving on to the next point, which is a wrong nutrition. Mostly, a wrong nutrition leads to an increased spike in insulin, and that insulin spike, when you look at the graph, leads to a bigger insulin crash. So what are, for example, reasons for that insulin crash? One can be that we eat meals with a high glycemic index, leading to a spike in our insulin levels, Also, that could be meals with lots of refined carbohydrates, drinking alcohol, sugar. Also, if we snack a lot and we are eating food with a high glycemic index, this leads to a low metabolic flexibility. What does that mean? If we have a low metabolic flexibility, that means that our body isn't used to metabolize fat in order to have energy, and therefore relies a lot on carbohydrates. This also increases our insulin spikes. Then another problem could be the leaky gut syndrome. This is where, if we have our gut or our darm flora here, this is where big particles get out of our stomach into our blood, which causes inflammation and especially neuroinflammation. This leaky gut syndrome is caused by meals with a lot of fat. Also, talking about meals and digestion, if you eat a meal which is hard to digest, such as meals with a lot of fat ingredients or with complex carbohydrates, your body activates cytokines. Those cytokines are the same cytokines he uses if he is inflamed or he has a sickness. This leads us to also feeling dizzy, increases our inflammation in our body, which then increases our brain fog and reduces our mental clarity. So we want to make sure that we avoid meals that are hard to digest. So what's the solution to this? We want to analyze which foods are healthy for us and easy to digest for our individual stomach and which aren't. We can do this by a gut testing kit to see which foods are good for our gut and which aren't. And also eliminate high carb meals and spread the carbs throughout the day. Also, besides high carb meals, so you want to reduce the carbs per meal, especially refined carbs. Also, we want to reduce processed oils in our nutrition. Also, the meat we eat, we want to make sure that it is high quality, because if the meat we eat was produced or the animals grew up in high stress situations, those hormones can remain in the meat and we eat those high stress hormones. To further improve our diet, we want to eliminate sweeteners, as they aren't good for our gut as well. And there, in this situation, it is actually better to just eat real sugar than false sugar, although real sugar shouldn't be consumed a lot as well, because it can increase the risk of getting cancer. And also, we want to drink enough. And also include enough electrolytes in the drinks we consume to enhance our cognitive functions. Then we want to also detect potential nutrient deficiencies, such as all B vitamins, B12, B9, B3, B1, folic acid, D3, magnesium, and all those microelements we need to properly function. Now, the question arises, okay, where do we find these? Liver, eggs, oyster, oranges, juices, beef, carrots, potatoes, fish, those are all great sources you can implement into your nutrition to cover those potential deficiencies. Then concerning your gut health, it is important to know that you are what you eat. So how can you improve your gut health? Yogurt really helps. Then bone broth also is very rich with really great nutrients, which helps to increase your gut health. and also is beneficial for your darm flora. What also helps is to increase your protein intake. Why? Because we need protein to build muscle. Protein helps us stabilize our insulin levels and thus helps us to not fall into crashes. What also helps is to take omega-3 as it linders our inflammation levels. And also what we can do, for example, if we are in a restaurant and we want to decrease our insulin crash, we can just eat a protein-rich first meal or appetizer, and then afterwards going on to our main meal. Why does that help? When we eat a protein-rich appetizer, it reduces the insulin spike we would potentially get if we just ate, for example, a high-carb meal. Also, if you want to be really exact about your deficiencies or your potential deficiencies, what always works is to just do a blood test to see how much of which parameter is in your blood. Do you have any deficiencies? Do you have any surpluses, which can also be in some cases, which is also very important to take into consideration because, for example, if you, let's say you eat enough copper or zinc, and then you think, maybe I want to supplement with some more zinc because I've read that it's good, it's beneficial, it enhances my cognitive function. And then if you eat already enough zinc and you go ahead and you then supplement also with zinc over a prolonged or over a long period of time, what can happen is that you actually intoxicate yourself. And this intoxication can lead to severe damages in your nerve systems, which you can't reverse or which are irreversible. So it is very important to let your blood be checked, and according to your blood parameters, that you then take preventive measures or adapt your nutrition, and first then you start to supplement, because before you don't know what you're actually doing. And it can be, in both directions, very dangerous. So that is really important. So we've covered the point food. We now are going to get into anemia. As I said before, anemia is when you have too little blood particles in your blood, especially the red blood particles. Those are responsible for transporting O2 to your brain, which helps it function properly. If we have too little, our brain function is diminished. What's the solution? The right nutrition. If we have the right micronutrients in place, we help our body with the production of the red blood particles. Then next point, so let me drive here some particles as well, so that we get that point visualized. Next point is too little movement. Why is this detrimental to our cognitive functioning? Too little movement decreases, first of all, our blood flow, which leads to a diminished clearance of our metabolites in our brain, and also increases just the pollution inside of our brain. So the solution is to obviously move. Why? Because when we move, we increase our blood flow, leading to a better elimination of our metabolites in our brain. And a really great practical implementation to do this is with so-called exercise snacks, which can be done 30 to 60 minutes before or after a meal. And what those exercise snacks are is just little high-intensity bursts of 1 minute, for example, sprint or running, which you can do without having to put on your sports clothes, and you can just do them in your clothes which you're in. You don't need no gym, you don't need to go somewhere special. You can just do them at the place you are at right now. And what that does is it leads to a better glucose consumption and thus decreases our insulin spike if we eat, for example, a high carb meal. So going on to the next point, which is the environment. Why is the environment important to our cognitive functioning? Well, there are two main reasons. For example, let's say we have a really loud environment. Well, what happens if we are exposed to a lot of noise all the time? This increases our sympathetic activity. Sympathetic in this case stands for the activity which we need when we are activated, when we need to perform, when we need to be at our best level, which is important and also helps us improve our cognitive functioning. But if this system is active all the time, then there is no place or no space for our body to recover properly. So we want to make sure that if you are in a city which is very noisy and very busy all the time, that we also get moments where we don't have noise, where we can silence ourselves or our environment, for example, with earplugs. The second point is that we have polluted air. If we have polluted air, this is really bad for our lungs and for our respiratory system. And if the respiratory system is polluted by the air, for example, in the city, and this is happening over a longer period of time, this can also increase inflammation levels. And as we have learned, inflammation levels or inflammation is the root cause of brain fog. So we want to make sure that we decrease the sympathetic activity just to the moments where we need it, for example, during sport or during high mental or cognitive functioning. So what is the solution to that problem? Well, first of all, as I mentioned already, earplugs, and also to just take walks in clear areas or clean areas. What I mean by that is, for example, a park is always very good. Maybe you have a forest nearby, just to breathe in some clear air. Coming to the second last point, which is chronic stress. Chronic stress, as you can imagine, is a state where our body is constantly active and never has space to unwind itself. Why is that not good? Well, as you might guess, or as I mentioned earlier, in that case, all the time our sympathetic nervous system is active, leaving no space for our parasympathetic nervous system to be activated, which helps our body to relax. And this state just increases the percentage of catecholamines which are released in our blood. Catecholamines are hormones such as cortisol or epinephrine, which increases our heart rate and leads to a state of stress in our body. Now, how can we resolve that state or help our body relax? Well, there are two main protocols you can do to help your body recover from those states. And those are NSDR and MBSR. What do those terms stand for? NSDR stands for non-sleep deep rest, and MBSR stands for mindfulness-based stress reductions. You can Google both those terms and find free protocols online. And when you listen to them, you can help your body get into a state of relaxation, and especially a deep state of relaxation. And by listening to those protocols and following along, you can help your body decrease the amount of catecholamines he produces and increase the time spent in recovery. The same goes with MBSR. If you practice MBSR, you help your body activate your parasympathetic nervous system, which helps your body recover and calm down. And then the last point is heavy metal exposure. Why is this detrimental to our health? Well, first of all, I want to explain what are the symptoms even, and the symptoms reach from anxiety, irritability, brain fog, chronic pain, dark circle under the eyes, sleepiness, sleeplessness, depression, mood swings, and bad sleep. Reach from anxiety to bad sleep. And what causes it is an endless list, which includes points we've discussed earlier, such as polluted air, air particles, even perfumes, or if you have a printer in your room. This all can lead to heavy metal exposure, and those metals then are taken up by your body and they stay in your system, which is not healthy. How can you resolve that? Well, first of all, what always helps is to sweat every single day. And you can do so obviously by doing sports, which also helps you to improve your mental clarity. And what we also want to do is we want to support our liver. Let me draw a liver here. Why our liver? Our liver is our main organ to detoxicate our body, and we can help improve its function with supplements such as magnesium, bicarbonate, which is really helpful, fructose, and just all amino acids such as protein or collagen. And it is so important to have the liver in function or functioning properly, because let's say here is our system in which we have lots of metal, and here is the external world. Well, the liver acts as a barrier between our internal system and the external world. So if we want to get rid of metals in our body, this needs to happen through our liver, because our liver sorts out all the metals or the toxic things in our body. So if our liver doesn't function properly, our body can't get rid of those toxicants inside of himself. So he needs the liver to be able to filter out those metals. What you can also do is a test to see whether you have a lot of metals or toxicants in your body. And if you do so, you can also do or undertake a process which is called dialysis. And there your blood gets cleaned and gets freed up of all those toxic metals. Alright, so in this video we have covered all the reasons why you might experience brain fog and how you can resolve it. And if you critically analyze which component you may have in your life that contributes to brain fog, you can now, with those points and solutions, tackle those parts individually and help you reduce your brain fog and increase your mental clarity. So what we have covered is what is the root cause of brain fog, which is in every case inflammation. That inflammation can be caused by a multitude of different reasons, and those reasons can then lead to inflammation, which can manifest itself with different symptoms. And you now know the solutions, you can tackle them or tackle your problems firsthand, and I hope I could provide value with this video to you. At that point, I'd like to mention that if you want to optimize your health and performance one-on-one with me, feel free to book a call to see whether you're a fit and if you can optimize your health and performance together. Otherwise, if you want more people to see this video, you can leave a thumbs up or share it, which would really help. And yeah, I hope that you have a good day, a good week, and I hope that you crush your goals. And I wish you prime performance and health. Best wishes, Jonas.